with the Oscar-nominated producer and star, Jessica Chastain.
I used to live, this is crazy, on 4th in California in a rent-controlled apartment when I first moved to Los Angeles, auditioning, trying to get a job, praying for like a film audition, and I had a membership to this theater. And I was still living there when I made the Tree of Life. I was like there when I got the call from Terry that Brad Pitt was going to be in. I mean, all of that stuff was all here. I saw Space Odyssey 2011 in this room. Everything. So it's very emotional to be back and to see my name on the marquee. It was like, whoa, what is happening?
So that's a full circle moment. But also a full circle moment is that you got the rights to this story 10 years ago. What's that been like for you over this long journey?
It's been very emotional for me. It was 10 years ago. It was, I was on the press tour for Zero Dark 30. You know, I had a lot of time outside of the industry to observe it, you know, because I wanted to be an actor for so long, and I'd studied it and seen, you know, the careers actresses were really allowed to have. And when I got the rights to this, I'd never produced anything before. I really had no idea what I was doing. I just saw the documentary and I thought, wow, I have a misunderstanding of this woman, and I want to honor her for this incredible thing that she did that I wish we did more now. This earnest, this radical acts of love, these things that she stood for, and instead she was mocked. And I wanted to right that wrong. And so I just kind of went out on a limb and said I had to figure out how to tell this story. And then in the decade it took to be here, the industry has changed so much now, where actresses are really, I'm not going to say encouraged yet, but we're paving a way to be storytellers and to kind of really have a new place in the industry. So it's really an exciting and emotional full circle moment. I figured it was going to be a television series. So I don't have 7 years of doing that. But I didn't know when I would play her because there's so much journey. I mean, when we start with Tammy, I mean, she was like this little slip of a girl. She was 4 feet 11, like 90 pounds in college. And then like where she ends in the 90s is so different. I kind of felt like, well, I'm not really on a ticking clock of I have to play this part now. And in fact, even when Searchlight was like, all right, we're financed, we're going, I was like, oh, wait. And I was trying to slow them down, and I was like secretly sabotaging it to give me more time. I didn't feel like 7 years was enough to study her. So I really, it was something I always knew that I wanted to do. I loved her at first sight of that documentary.
I love that documentary too, and it just gives you such a different understanding of like what the tabloid understanding of Tammy Faye was. And I grew up in the 90s on tabloids. I mean, my grandmother subscribed to the National Enquirer, so I have those images of her sort of imprinted on my frontal lobe. But this is such a corrective. That documentary is such a corrective. There are podcasts like You're Wrong About. I just listened to your interview with Sarah, which was so great. And I just appreciate so much the sort of gift of empathy that you give this story, because she gave so much of it and didn't receive that in return.
Yeah, we really are. I mean, it's a bit sad, but we're really a society that kind of celebrates cynicism, you know, and being cool and being aloof. And like the more withdrawn you are, the more you're seen as like, ooh, I wish I was like that. And the more outrageous acts of love, or even something as beautiful as like, you know, people might think this is a strange thing, but like, I remember Tom Cruise jumping on the couch. I don't know, so sweet. You know, but it got like so made fun of, and like Tammy got made fun of, and this idea of like someone might wear their heart on their sleeve. Society sees that as like, well, that's fake, you know, or that's not a true form of emotion or love. And I find it my desire to kind of change that wiring, because earnest acts of love to me are such a beautiful thing. And I find, and I saw it with myself in the industry. I'm a very, very sensitive person. And when I started in the industry, I got really nervous that people would see that as weakness, and they would think that I was weak. I did a photo shoot for my magazine. I was on the cover, and the whole article was about I was so sensitive, and I cried a lot, and all these things. And I thought I never want to be perceived that way, because I want people to take me seriously. And so then I started doing all these type A characters who had vulnerability, but also were very, very strong. And in playing Tammy, I kind of was oh, actually being open with your emotions and being sensitive and connecting to others, I think, is a much more generous way of living, and also a much more courageous way to live. And so perhaps that was a long answer to your question, but
it was a beautiful one. I wanted to also ask about finding your gym, because I think Andrew Garfield is so when you see him talk, and he expresses so much emotion too, as just an individual. But you can see him just being yeah, I'm gonna play this really uncool guy who's also a really bad guy. But as a producer, was that a long journey to find Jim, or what was that process for you?
No, it was pretty quick that we zeroed in on Andrew. I mean, it was a long journey to get him to say yes, to be honest. I had a lot of phone calls. I'd be somewhere and I'd, hear, Andrew would like to have another call. And you're no problem. There was a lot of, conversations about it, and I think he was nervous that he's I don't want to be telling the one side. I don't want to make fun of these people. I don't want to be this mustache twirling villain. And I was that is not the story we want to tell. I mean, that's what the tabloids told. That's gossip magazines. That's already been done. That's what everyone expects us to do. They expect us to make fun of Christianity or religion and these people. I'm more interested in the humanity of these people. And so that was the thing he was most afraid of. And then when he realized that we were going to tell the story in a different way than it had been told in the past, he signed on.
One of the storytelling choices I appreciate in this film is we're so locked in with Tammy's point of view, and we only see the Jessica Hahn story from her experience of hearing it from Jim. And I'm sure, I wonder if there was some back and forth about how to include that, because I think it was really classy, but also true to the story and the woman, the character, to show that event in that way.
Yeah, that was a lot of discussions, because when people thought of Tammy Faye, they thought of, and it was the Jim Baker scandal. It wasn't, Tammy Faye scandal. And I read so much about what happened, and I read an article about Jessica Hahn, and she said in this article, I have so much more to my life than what happened then, and I don't want that to define me, and I don't want to be talked about anymore in that context. And when I read that, I thought, well, there is no reason to include her in a movie where she actually never met Tammy Faye in person, because then we'd be using her, and we'd be using her trauma for profit. And I was very clear in the very beginning, I didn't want to profit off of someone else's trauma. And I wanted to look at this time period and look at it in a way that was healing rather than creating more pain for others.
I applaud you for that. That's it. You can sing. In anything? Yeah. Or, how did you prepare to tackle the Tammy Faye musical songbook?
I I mean, I sang a little bit in college. We had to do cabaret Juilliard, and that was, stressful. And then I sing, it's hidden like in the movies. I sing in the Tree of Life, actually. You hear like a little bit, it depends on which version, because Terry Malick has so many versions of that song. There's like a little hymn that you hear like a soprano singing, that's me. And then there's also a song in Crimson Peak, a soprano singing, and that's me. But this is the first time you actually see my mouth move and sound come out on camera. And it's a different way of singing because I can be so shy that, and Tammy never was. She like started at a 12 and never went lower because she ministered through song and without like microphones. So she was in these tents like yelling it out to Jesus from the first note. And so there's no variation in that, and I had to get really comfortable really fast, and Dave Cobb helped me. Dave Cobb, he's the music producer of A Star Is Born and other incredible things.
Just a little movie called A Star Is Born.
Yeah. So, and but he grew up watching PTL, so he was really excited about this. And mostly excited about like the puppet medley, which was probably the most fun.
Well, her singing is so powerful, because she was a really powerful singer too, so much how she expressed her emotions and her joy and pain and love and anguish. I mean, I think that scene of her singing on their goodbye episode, I mean, it's the real thing. You guys haven't seen it. It's amazing. But you were like right there at the same level of intensity and emotion and expression, so it's...
Thank you for saying that. I mean, what's so amazing is you can see a lot of this stuff on YouTube. Yeah. Which also was like, oh, this is so great, like all this stuff I can watch. And then I was like, oh no, everyone can watch it afterwards. But I guess when you have 7 years of research, you can prepare. And for that song, The Sun Will Shine Again, I wrote down all of her, like every time she moved, like, okay, on this word, the hand goes up, and then it closes on this word, and it goes like this, and she does this. And I wrote everything down, on each word, how her body moved in the performance on YouTube. And then I noticed towards the end of the song, she started becoming really, like almost anxious, because she moved on every single word. It was almost, frenetic, her movement. And to me, that was so emotional in the telling of that. Like, as she's saying, like, it's almost over, or it's about to, I'm saying, okay, we're almost done. Like, she started to kind of like panic because she realized she was saying goodbye to these people that she loved and these millions of people that she spoke to every day. And the only reason I kind of was able to piece that out is from the puzzle of like left hand up, right hand down, and then noticing I got to the point where I had no room on the page because she was moving so much.
Does it feel, do you feel like you're kind of saying goodbye to her in a sense right now? Or is there something about her that you will always sort of take with you?
I will definitely take with me a love for her children. Because I reached out to them, which was a very scary thing to do. Tammy Sue, who sings the song in our credits, she sings Don't Give Up on the Brink of a Miracle, and her mother's organ is used in the back, in like the accompaniment of the song. And Jay Baker started a church, Revolution Church, he's a minister. These were like teenagers when PTL collapsed. And they had careers in front of them, and Tammy Sue had a recording contract, and everything got taken away. Like the beginning of their adulthood, they were just like made laughing stocks, and the trauma of what had happened was really seeped into their lives, and they had so much fear about being used, their family being used, because that's what they grew up with, right? They were constantly made fun of. And so when I reached out to them, I had this fear of like, are they going to say, don't do this, please leave us alone? And I would have. Actually, if they had said that, I'd be like, I'm out, you got it, no problem. And they didn't. And I talked to them a lot, and they helped me a lot. And I love them very dearly. And it's been a very emotional thing. I mean, Tammy Sue's texted me many times saying, like, if Mother were here, she would be so appreciative. It's like so emotional. It's beautiful because it's such a lesson also in, like, you know, we don't value people sometimes enough when they're here. And I really, you know, I never got the opportunity, I'm saying you know a lot because that's what Tammy said all the time. I never got the opportunity to meet her, but in some sense, it is a love letter to her. And it makes me really happy that her children actually have this love letter to them as well.
So the film that's playing after this is Tree of Life, which came out in 2011, which was like Take Shelter, Coriolanus, The Help was a huge year in your career. I can imagine that was quite intense. But can you tell us a little bit about working with Terrence Malick and what that was like for you?
A dream come true. There are jobs that are monumental in your life because not only do they match up professionally, but they match up personally. And this one, because of the things I learned about like being able to be sensitive and open and not be afraid to show love and all of these things that connect me to Tammy was very important. Also, it's been monumental in my professional life. Tree of Life was the same. He's a great teacher of mine. He's a great sage. It was huge in my life in terms of introducing me to the industry. I mean, I was an unknown actress acting opposite Brad Pitt and Sean Penn. That red carpet in Cannes was like, what is going on? And then it also, I got to spend years playing a character who's the embodiment of grace. And like my warm-ups every day were like opening my heart space, you know, and cultivating love. And when you're playing someone like that, and your job is to cultivate empathy and love for others, it's like the best job you can have.
Well, it's interesting how they tie together in this way. You know, I think there's a beautiful double feature. So thank you very much. I think we can take one or two questions from the audience. Let's see. Okay, right here.
Incredible. First off, is absolutely incredible. My question is, you're playing a character based on a real human, a full-fledged, over the top at times human. Is it different playing somebody who actually lived versus playing a role in? But playing, but playing something in like Prince and Pete or in even Book of Life.
So the question is, I'm just going to repeat for that. It's about playing a real person versus a written person.
Yeah. And in both aspects, like whether or not it's a real character or character based on someone or a fictional character, I always create the truth of who it is. Like, what's their favorite color? What's their favorite piece of music? When I'm doing my research, I'll like read books. You know, like Crimson Peak, I read about like female serial killers. And I had, you know, while I was doing my research, I decided, like, what does she smell like? And I like had this idea. So I had this perfume that I wore, this oil that I wore, and I did all of that through the research. And then when I would get on set, or before I go and get dressed in my costume, then I put the oil on. And then unbeknownst, like it just seeps in. You know, there's memory and everything. I smell cut grass and I think of my childhood, like without trying to. It just happens. And so during a research process, like scent is really important to me to think of what each individual smells like. And Tammy Faye was the same. Except I got to find the answer. So instead of creating it, like I asked her daughter, and she's like, okay, she wore this perfume from this year, and this. Her favorite color is pink and leopard. Like, I got the answers for me, but I still like write every single thing out. It can be harder playing a real person who an audience has already decided an opinion on, and you want to change their opinion. That's probably a harder thing to do because they come in already like against what you're doing in some sense. But they're both, they both take a lot of work. I think playing someone who is as well known as Tammy Faye is more work, which is why I need more time.
Okay, one more question. Yes.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you. It's such an honor. front of greatness. So thank you. And my question is, this is a rise and fall story. So why do you think people are always so interested in these kind of stories?
Yeah, it is a rise.
I think everyone heard it, right? Yeah. Okay, is this a rise and fall story, and why are we interested in?
I like to say it's a rise and fall rise story, right? And I think we're so interested in these stories because we can relate to it. I can relate to the sense of maybe, not always, but maybe feeling not good enough. Maybe feeling like, okay, I'm really going to challenge myself, or okay, I haven't succeeded at this, but am I going to get through it? Tammy started in, she was born in a Pentecostal community and really kind of worked her way from there into a new definition for her of what God's grace and faith was and who's deserving of it, and she believed everyone was. I think we're interested in a rise and fall story because many of us feel sometimes on the outside. We feel like the underdog. And we all love the story of the person who feels like they can't do it and then they do it. We all root for that. It really is, in some sense, the American dream. And that's what I love so much about the United States is you can kind of be born. It really is my story in some sense. Like, I was born, in a single mother household, 5 kids, high school dropout, like all of these things that you just think, well, but it really is a situation of like you work hard and you can, get where you want to go. And we love to see someone rise from the ashes. And I think you always rise. It always like rise, fall, rise, fall. You always end up like, on top.
Because I love her after this movie. I'm obsessed with her. And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Please stick around for Tree of Life. And thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
I know. Could have saved some money. Well, I lost the family. I don't know.